Welcome to Warning Track Tower, live from Dallas, Texas. My name is Ian Fullington, and my co-host, live from San Bernardino, California, is Eric Reining. How are you doing, Eric?
I am good. How are you doing?
Pretty good. Got a little bit of a chest cold. Got the sexy podcast voice going on, but no worse for the wear. Just working a lot. Back in Dallas for a summer, actually. I made it to a Rangers game a week ago. It was a Fireworks Friday. I wish I remember who they played, but we won. That's all I remember.
Wasn't that the Kansas City game?
That was the Kansas City game.
Why do I know that and you don't know that?
I don't know. I don't. But it was a good game. I enjoyed it. Rangers won. I'm pretty happy about that. It's tough to complain when you go to a Rangers game and they win.
True.
But it's. I'm making a really bad habit of procrastinating on these podcasts, and I'd like to apologize a little bit for that.
Shit happens.
But I think we can redeem ourselves this week because we have a very nice menu set up for our listeners. You want to talk a little bit about what we are going to talk about?
Well, I would consider it more of a smorgasbord.
I like that. It's a buffet.
Right. I mean, you can kind of pick and choose what you like and just fast forward through the bullshit. Issue 1.
So there won't be any fast forwarding?
Probably. Arguably. We're going to talk about Nelson Cruz, what's wrong with him, what the suspension has to do with the Rangers, which that's a big shitty situation just waiting to happen. But we'll talk about our pitching situation a little bit, the back end of the rotation, especially with a lot of our starters coming back from the disabled list. Nick Tepesh, Justin Grimm, Martin Perez, like, what do they mean? Are they trade pieces? Whatever. And finally, JURICKSON PROFAR, who has been very, very good so far. What do you think?
Man, what don't I think of him?
Are you happy?
Am I happy? You know when everyone said, he's good, but don't expect a Mike Trout or a Bryce Harper? Man, he is impressing me on all aspects of his game. I could not be more pleased with what he is doing in the majors right now. But we'll get to that in a minute. I'll save that's our dessert. JURICKSON PROFAR is dessert for all intents and purposes.
It's wet. It's going to be a wet segment.
It will be very wet. And this is very deep with my voice. But we have to, speaking of eating, let's talk about what's eating Nelson Cruz. Admittedly, I haven't looked at his stats in the past week, but I know he's mired in a bit of a downward slump right now. It's bad, don't get me wrong, it's not good. The Rangers need production from wherever he hits in the order, simply because they don't have as many offensive tools as we're used to in the past. However, is this really that abnormal for Nelson Cruz, or are we just having a selective memory here? What do you think?
I wrote an article about it about a week ago now, and his plate discipline is eroding on him, mainly, so I think this is a bigger issue. He's not that much above a replacement level player at this point in his career, and his bat is really the only thing that the Rangers extract any sort of value from. Yet,
I thought his defense was really good, too.
Don't even get me started, man. Don't even troll me like that. But yeah, I mean, across the board, I was looking at some of his, and the sample size is big enough now that, trends are actually legitimate for this particular season, and his swing percentage is up, his contact percentage is down, pretty much across the board, which is resulting in more strikeouts and, the same, type of walk rate. He's no Michael Young or anything, but, we could do better out of our right fielder and our number 5 hitter.
Who do you think would be a better right fielder within the organization right now? Or do we not have a player who could be a better right fielder?
I would say if Nelson... Okay, are we going to start on the suspension hypothetical right now, or...
Actually, let's say that for 1 second. I want to ask you this question.
Okay.
Okay, I guess, you know what, you've already answered a little bit, but here's my impression of Nelson Cruz. He's been a streaky hitter his whole career. I think we remember too much of his 2011. Man, it's a long time ago now.
Yeah.
His 2011 postseason performance in heroics. I think we think of him doing that throughout his career, when in reality he's a really streaky hitter. He's never really been a guy who's gonna get hot for a small amount. He's not gonna get hot for months at a time. He's gonna get hot for a week and then he's gonna cool off drastically. He's your ultimate. You flip heads 5 times, you flip tails the next 5 times. So I totally understand with the metrics saying he's down. Do I think we've seen the best of Nelson Cruz? Yeah, I think we have. I don't know if it's gonna ever get back to that series against the Tigers, but that's kind of we'll talk about Murphy or Cruz in the offseason soon, but let's talk about a more pressing issue now with if Nelson Cruz is suspended. It's a 2-pronged question for you, Eric, so make sure you have notes for this. 2 prongs. Is losing Nelson Cruz a big deal for a suspension? Would it materially hurt the Rangers? By materially hurt, I mean they're going to lose more games than they would have won with him in the lineup. And 2, who within the organization is going to fill the void that Nelson Cruz leaves?
As far as the big deal, I would say no, but I guess it could be. It would just obviously it would depend on who he got replaced with. The person I would replace him with, and this is kind of off the wall, I guess, but Engel Beltre.
I was gonna say Engel Beltre is probably at the top, one of the
right.
close to the top of my list too.
See, the other options you could go with is just to play a guy like Mike Olt or Jeff Baker in a 4 corners type role, but that you'd really be sacrificing a lot of defense. And if you brought Engel Beltre up, you would make Leonis Martin an everyday outfielder. Against right-handed pitching, he'd play center field. Against left-handed pitching, he would play left field, with Craig Gentry playing in center, platooning with Engel Beltre. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. Now, since I have looked into our crystal balls and I have predicted this, does it bother you at all that Engel Beltre's power numbers are way down? And so replacing Nelson Cruz with Engel Beltre will result in basically an outfield that doesn't have much pop. I mean, Murphy probably has the most power out of all of our outfielders right now. Mm-hmm. I think Martin could hit 15 to 20 home runs.
Wait, you think David Murphy has not more than Nelson Cruz, though, right? You're taking Nelson
I'm talking without Nelson. Yeah, Nelson Cruz not in the picture.
Right.
I think David Murphy, not including Jeff Baker either, because I don't. Of course, Jeff Baker's only ever hit 12 home runs in a season before too. So, are you okay with an outfield that hits for average but not power?
Yeah, I'm not concerned with Engel Beltre's bat because I think his defense and his base running ability will make up for whatever offense we're losing in Nelson Cruz. Because he would be, if he was theoretically brought up, you would put him in left field because that's more demanding than right field, and then David Murphy would shift over to right. And this would be against right-handed pitching, of course. Mm-hmm. You put Engel Beltre, who's a plus defender, arguably plus in the outfield. He has a strong arm. You put him in left field, and you're saving runs by putting David Murphy, who would, I would say, probably be a better right fielder than Nelson Cruz at this point.
Mm-hmm. I'd agree that. I would agree with that. Let me float this by you real quick, just since we're kind of fleshing out this. If you're John Daniels right now, and you have all the control you want over your farm system, do you start plugging Mike Olt into right field while he's getting his vision back, just to get him reps, or are you pretty much set on Engel Beltre?
I'm keeping Mike Olt in the infield. I would not mess with him in the outfield because he already had a leg problem last year. I really would hate for him to just have weird leg injuries.
And plantar fasciitis?
Yeah, plantar fasciitis. That's what Albert Pujols has this year, right?
Yes, but Albert Pujols is 44 and he's an old man.
Exactly.
He probably has gout.
True. Good point. Touche.
Okay, another question. Would you put Mike Olt at first base?
That is what I definitely would. Because I think Mitch Moreland essentially, if we're breaking him down to the bone, and I know he's had a great year, and I know a lot of fans really like him and his, the narrative that he's building this year, before his leg injury, of course. But yeah, I mean, Mike Olt is a future, everyday kind of player. He probably doesn't have the bat to play first base. He's better suited at third base from an offensive value standpoint. I think he has
the bat for a first baseman.
How so?
I mean, he hits for power. He's not going to hit for average. This is not the kind of player he is.
Right.
I think he's going to strike out a lot. But then again, I mean, he's not. You can't have Joey Votto. You're not going to have Joey Votto.
Well, construct for me a triple slash line that you could see for Mike Olt. Right now, or next year, or 2 years from now, what kind of hitter do you see him as?
I mean, right now, I think he's going to struggle to bat over 250. As far as on base percentage, I just look at on base percentage.
Right.
Honestly, Eric,
Yeah.
I think that's the best indicator.
Exactly.
I think he could honestly get on base probably over. He could probably get on base at a clip around 310.
No,
if his play discipline's a little better.
That's terrible. A 310 on base percentage from your first baseman is garbage.
Yeah. But at the same time, I feel like he could also hit 30 home runs, too.
Right.
I mean, Prince Fielder and Joey Votto are your prototypical first baseman. Aside from Prince Fielder, he can't field anything unless it's a hot dog in line.
You want your first baseman's on base percentage something in the 350, 360 range, ideally.
You asked me this year, Eric. Damn it.
Right.
Give me a freaking minute. You said this year. He's not a first baseman this year. He can't even see this year.
Well,
now, a couple years down the road,
at Round Rock right now, would you put him at first base?
No, I'd put him in right field.
Would you really?
Yeah, because that's where we have the biggest need right now.
I mean, honestly, if you want to,
yeah, I mean, I don't think we're losing any defense. Is the whole thing. Here's my issue. Right now, Martin and Gentry are not hitting well in center field. I'm just going to throw that out there right now. They started off okay, but recently they're not hitting that well in center field, and that's a big area of production that we really need because David Murphy is not doing well at all either. I mean, I have no faith in our outfield whatsoever right now. We need a bat in the outfield who can make an impact in this game. And if that means you sacrifice some defense, that's fine, but I really don't think Mike Olt is that much of a defensive let-up from Nelson Cruz. I mean, Cruz and Murphy are just lost in the outfield. Between Cruz's read on balls and Murphy's footwork and first instinct, man, they're lost, Eric. They have no idea what they're doing out there. It's gotten progressively worse, too. And, I mean, every fly ball is an adventure. I've yet to really see recently a fly ball that Nelson Cruz plays exceptionally well. He's always, moving towards the ball at the last minute, or he's struggling to get a read on it, or he's hesitating a half second, or Murphy's footwork is just terrible. I don't think we're really sacrificing that much defense.
You are proving my point for me by saying how bad we are at defense and why we need another glove out there.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing it. Honestly, if I were to do it, I would bring up Engel Beltre. But right now I'm putting Mike Olt in right field because down the stretch, if Nelson Cruz's appeal doesn't pan out and you still need an impact bat, well, Mike Olt, you can plug him into right field. That's fine.
I think the argument that we're having right now is that I don't look at Nelson Cruz as an impact bat. I just look at him as another, a slightly above replacement hitter.
I mean, I do believe, I know we don't like to look at necessarily RBI as a decent stat.
Terrible.
But he does have a fair amount of home run and run batted in. So,
but what else does he do for you? That's my problem with Nelson Cruz right now.
He's a highlight reel of
bloopers,
misplays.
Yeah.
I mean, there you go. But I do agree with you. I'm going to agree with you on this part. I don't think losing Nelson Cruz will be that big of a deal.
Because, go
ahead.
No, my last point on this is, I'm sorry to cut you off, but it's that another glove in the outfield would also be helping our pitching staff. It's all about run prevention. I'm less concerned with scoring runs than I am with allowing them. And the Rangers pitching staff is one of their strengths this year, and it would only get stronger if you bring up, Engel Beltre to replace Nelson Cruz, or if Nelson Cruz just ceased to exist altogether. I mean, it wouldn't be that big of an issue for the Rangers to replace him for virtually the same production.
What if you still platooned Martine and Gentry in center, put Engel in left, and then put Olt in right field? How would you feel about that?
Well, I wouldn't want Engel Beltre seeing left-handed pitching. He's not an everyday player to me.
Is he out of options? I think he's out of options.
Yeah, if we called him up and
right.
wanted to make a move with him, he'd have to clear waivers, which he wouldn't.
That would really be that would almost be prohibitive for me to want to bring him up then, just because he is out of options. But then again, we're going to DFA Kirkman tonight, so that's good news.
Yeah, well, I kind of feel bad for Michael Kirkman, to be honest with you.
You know, I do too, Eric, but at the same time, he's a major league pitcher in a major league bullpen, and he's been giving more opportunities than most players would in his position.
Yeah, I mean, I just think he wasn't really even supposed to make it to the major leagues, I guess. I remember when he was with the Bakersfield Blaze, because they're a couple hours away from where I live, and I don't know, I remember following Michael Kirkman, like, oh wow, who the hell is this guy? And he ended up making it to the club, and I was just happy for him. And you know, he's had some bright spots, contrary to popular opinion amongst Rangers fans. But you know, he needs to go. He needs to be Scott Feldman and end up on the Cubs or something.
Yeah, he needs to go somewhere else. I mean, you have your baseball crush on a guy you watched grow up. That's fine. I understand that, and I would too. Don't get me wrong. I felt that way with Thomas Diamond. Do you remember him
way
back when?
Loved him.
I watched him pitch quite a bit, actually, at Frisco when he was there. And I'm like, man, he's one of the DVD boys. He's got to make it. And he just never did.
Lame story. I used to, during the summertime when I was, 13, 14, 15, I would listen in on MILB.com. They had audio back then, and I would listen in for Thomas Diamond and Eric Hurley and John Danks. Whenever those guys started, I never wanted to miss it. So,
man, I remember Eric Hurley. Yeah. I always thought he was going to make it.
Stud. They were all supposed to be studs.
The DVD boys,
man. And then Hurley showed up a year later and was like, oh, wow, this guy's even better. Because people realized that Thomas Diamond couldn't throw strikes.
Yeah. And then Danks is the only one who made it.
And Edison Volquez did, but he can't throw strikes either.
Edison Volquez, yeah. But,
right.
Okay, so just slightly back on topic. Are you going to miss Murphy and Cruz when they leave this offseason?
I wanted to trade David Murphy like 18 times, so I won't miss...
He's a good pitcher, man.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to have a lifetime ERA of 0. Maybe like...
Michael Kirkman can't say that.
Yeah. No, I won't miss David Murphy. I'll miss Nelson Cruz a lot more, particularly for his... He always seemed to be like a big-time hitter. He always seemed to hit well in the playoffs. I like guys like that.
He never shied from the moment.
Right. And, he provided us with, or Rangers fans in general, with like very, very happy moments during a very happy time. So I have absolutely no hate for a guy like that.
Yeah, no, I think I'm the same way. I know Ranger Nation's going to really miss David Murphy for some odd reason.
Because he is second.
He's second in the batting order and shouldn't be there. But if there was a gun to your head right now and you had to have one back on a one-year deal, who would you have back on a one-year deal?
I would take Nelson Cruz all day. And use him as a platoon bat.
Right field, you know that.
I wouldn't have... I'm not going to start him. I'm not going to pay him more than like $7 million, but yeah.
What would you do with him then?
Use him as a platoon bat.
Okay.
At DH and right field.
But you have Lake Dad still at DH next year.
True. Nelson Cruz will only DH when Lake Dad is on the bench.
Fair enough. Okay. Just wrapping this thing up. Do you think our corner outfield defense hurts us in the long run?
I think it's already hurt us. I see no reason why it won't continue to. David Murphy and Nelson Cruz are both substandard. Yeah, I mean they're both bad outfielders.
It's gotten worse too.
Yeah, they're sloppy.
They just can't. Man, they can't read a baseball well. Anyway, here's our second. I agree with you on moving on, just because I can't argue with that. I mean, if I'm going to try to argue that our outfield defense is good, then I lose all credibility, and I go right for the Dallas Morning News.
Yeah. The cool. Turn me up. Yeah.
came back in the same suit that he was buried in, similar to the one his grandfather was married in. Yes, he was still fresh to death, blamed 2 earrings, a chain laying on his chest. He still had it because they couldn't find it, and the bullets from his enemies sat like 2 inches behind.
Basically, I'm looking at the back end of our bullpen here, and I'm thinking to myself, it's Game 4 of the World Series. My God, we've made it back. And Eric, let me tell you something. We have them right where we want them. We're up 3-0 on the St. Louis Cardinals, and you know what, Eric? We're looking to put a nail in the coffin and bring home hardware. You have a choice between Justin Grimm, Alexio Gondo, Martin Perez, or Nick Tepish to pitch Game 4. Who do you trot out there for Game 4 to shut this baby down and bring home the hardware?
Yeah, I saw this question, and I wouldn't want to include Alexia Gondo. He's kind of the cooler in that group. I mean, that's the obvious choice because of experience.
Okay,
so let's
take out Ogando.
Yeah, let's shave this to Grimm, Martin Perez, and Nick Tepish. This might surprise you because of our Twitter beefs over Justin Grimm and Nick Tepish, but I would take Nick Tepish right now.
Right now.
Right now. I think he's got guts.
Do you think he's phased by the moment?
No. I think he's got rig.
I literally believe he does not give a shit how bad he pitches one day. Or maybe he does, he just never shows it.
Unflappable.
Like, it's not even ice water that goes through his veins, Eric. He has, like, glaciers that go through his veins, okay? He does not budge. Have you ever seen his interviews? It's like, so Nick, you gave up 6 runs in 2 innings today. Yep, didn't pitch good.
Yep.
Okay. It's like, gonna go out there next time. Okay. And then he'll pitch a great game, be like, Nick, you pitched great. Yep.
You know what it's all due to is Ron Washington's teaching moments.
Nolan Ryan found Nick Tepish. You know that?
Yeah.
He went out there and he scouted him.
I heard it was raining and Nolan Ryan like ran out of hot dogs, so he was out in some.
Nolan Ryan had to walk 15 miles in the rain uphill to scout Nick Tepish.
Yes, and
do you know?
Yeah, and
do you know who helped him scout him?
Michael Young.
Michael Young.
Yeah,
Michael Young.
They were the killer tandem, man. They were a dynamic duo.
They reformed scouting as we know it.
They are why sabermetrics exist.
Exactly. So,
even though I can't say
sabermetrics is your number
4.
No. Nick Tepish is your number 4?
Well, I guess Colby Lewis would be my hypothetical number 4, but
off
of
Colby
that
Lewis
list,
doesn't. I'm saying right now, Colby Lewis doesn't come back this year.
Okay. Yeah, I would take.
I mean, as sad as it sounds, I said this before the season started. And I really hate to say I told you so, but I said I would be very surprised if Colby Lewis makes a meaningful contribution this year. I think he and Neftali Feliz don't make meaningful contributions this year to the team. I love Colby Lewis. Don't get me wrong. He's the guy who I would want pitching, a game 2 if he was fully healthy, but he's not. So I don't want him pitching if he's not.
I remember Joey Matches, that guy.
Mm-hmm.
He said the same thing in one of his articles, probably like 6 months ago now. But he was talking about injuries, and he's obviously well informed because he does his research. But he said the same thing, and I don't know, maybe it's just the dumb, optimistic fan inside of me that kind of believes in Colby Lewis or Neftali Feliz's ability to come back from injury. But I kind of think there is a chance that they could do something for us, production-wise.
I want to interrupt this to say the name of the most recent Rangers draft pick. You're going to really like this. The Rangers just drafted the guy with probably the best name in the draft so far. You ready?
Let's do it.
6'5", Hakeem Bostick. Is that not a great baseball name or what? He's got to be good.
Got me checking Twitter now. Thanks a lot.
He has to be good. I know. I was just seeing the Spurs beat the Heat.
Did they really?
So I'm pretty happy about that, yeah. All the Lakers fans have to... the Heat fans have to be real disappointed in that. Are you a Lakers fan?
Absolutely not.
Good. You better not be.
You like the Spurs, don't you?
No, I'm a Mavs fan, man.
Oh, yeah, Mavs. That's what I meant to say.
Even though I'm surrounded by Thunder fans in Oklahoma City.
Yeah, I'm a Brooklyn Nets fan.
But Anyway, okay. I'm okay with the Nets.
Okay. Jay-Z.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, Eric, I'll be honest. I don't give a shit about the Nets, so that means I'm okay with them.
All right, good.
Anyway, back to baseball. This isn't free throw shooting percentage power or something, or I don't know, deep range.
Mm-hmm.
But second part of this question, actually, you know what? I need to answer this question, don't I?
Sure.
I want Justin Grimm pitching. He can strike guys out. That's what matters to me in the postseason. I don't know why, but for some reason, you've converted me to a Justin Grimm believer. And when Justin Grimm is on and he's focused and his stuff works, I think he's as good as anyone not named Yu Darvish in our staff.
Oh,
I really do.
Come on.
If Justin Grimm has a strikeout pitch, he's really good.
He does.
He's still a year away from really being major league ready, in my opinion, though.
Jason Parks, I trust Jason Parks' opinion, and Jason Parks says that Justin Grimm should be in Round Rock right now.
Yeah, I think Jason Cole said the same thing, and he should, but unfortunately, that's not what was in the plans this year. And I mean, he's not exactly being hurt developmental-wise by not being in Round Rock. He's facing tougher pitching. He's holding his own, honestly. I mean,
he's doing fucking amazing.
He's doing really good.
Right. He's awesome. I mean, it's great because when he does start, I have very low expectations every time out, and he's done a better job than not thus far, and that's just exciting because it's like, oh, I'm not even expecting this, and it's happening. Mm-hmm. Those are the best surprises.
I think he has of Perez, Tepish, and Grimm. I think Grimm has the second best stuff. Tepish's stuff won't wow you. He just has really good command. Perez has the best stuff. It's not even close. Perez's stuff is awesome, but his command's not been there.
Nick Tepish is the product of what baseball has become from a developmental standpoint over the last 5 years. It's that everybody, it's the Cliff Lee effect. Everybody has a cut fastball now, and Nick Tepish has astute control of the strike zone, and if you can command a cut fastball, you can get righties and lefties out, and he's done a good job. Again, I don't expect
an extreme ground ball pitcher.
Right. He puts up ridiculous, ground ball. Like, he'll only strike out a couple guys, but if you're striking out 2 guys, getting 3 fly ball outs and, 15 ground ball outs, that's good, too,
Do you think that we might need to re-examine? This is kind of off topic, but probably valid. I think Fangraphs might have had an article about this. Do you think we need to re-examine how much we rely on BABIP for pitchers? Do you think there's a certain amount of sustainability and control of BABIP for ground ball pitchers? Do you think some pitchers can actually control the batted average of the balls that they're allowing to be put in play?
This is a very interesting. This is one of the 2013 sabermetric things they're investigating. So I guess my best answer is just that it's so inconclusive right now that we don't really know. But I tend to look at a guy like Yu Darvish, who has a very low BABIP. Last year it was 310, I think, but this year it's in the 250s. I tend to think guys with nastier stuff will just induce weaker contact. That seems just like a logical way to look at it. So that's kind of the way I always go to it. Higher strikeout rates, I don't think they necessarily correlate to lower BABIP, but I think it would make a lot of sense.
See, here's my thing on it, though. Jared Weaver has had a career BABIP that's historically low. Low by, it's always below the seasonal averages. And Jared Weaver, while he can strike a good amount of guys out, he's always been a guy who induces pretty crappy contact on the ball. And I think he was specifically mentioned in the Fangraphs article as a good case study, if you will, for BABIP being able to be controlled by the pitchers to some degree. And I think there is some validity to that.
I think a lot of it also comes down to the ballparks that you pitch in. And Jared Weaver is a classic, fly ball pitcher in a very run-suppressive park that's not going to give up a lot of home runs. So those types of things also work in the pitcher's favor. So I guess you have to look at everything kind of on a case-by-case, individual type of study, I think. I said I think a lot right there. I sound like a teenager.
I mean, we all do, but I listened to the first podcast we did, and that was my biggest gripe with myself, is that I was always saying, I think this, I think that. Well, no shit you think that, or else you wouldn't be saying it. If you didn't think it, you wouldn't say it, damn it. But yeah, it's going to be interesting going forward to see if these ground ball pitchers continue to be the trend. Undoubtedly, they're kind of the way the game is shifting a little bit right now because they like to preserve. These guys can go longer into games, which I think players value more. But this kind of brings me to my next topic. Do pitch counts really matter, Eric?
Absolutely. You
do. And now, is there a number in your head? Obviously, if you throw 200 pitches, that's not good. But is there a number in your head where you're like, no, you shouldn't be throwing more than this many pitches?
I think it's all dependent on the context. If you have your best pitcher out there and it's a 1-run game in the 8th inning or the 9th inning and he happens to be at 120 pitches, let him go. He's been effective, and that's the guy you want out there. You want your best pitcher out there to get the outs. Conversely, the classic, Ron Washington is stupid. When he left, Yu Darvish out in the 10-4 game in the 8th inning, obviously that's just, come on. Like, if your bullpen can't handle a 6-run lead, if you don't trust your bullpen to handle a 6-run lead, like, give me a break. He shouldn't be throwing 130 pitches in that game, but, if it was, tonight, for example, and it was a 3-2 game in the 9th inning, sure, let him go. You don't want to make a habit of it, but at the same time, I think if it happens 3 or 4 times over the course of a year, it's not going to affect the pitcher that much.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think my biggest gripe, I don't have a set number in my head for pitch count. Do I think pitchers should be consistently throwing more than 130 or 40 pitches? Probably not. But I think there's I'm saying I think a lot now that you said it, but there's an important dichotomy to be drawn here between pitches under stress and pitches not under stress. I kind of equate this to when I go for a jog. If I'm stressed out from work, I'm not going to do very well when I work out or when I jog. I can't go near as far. But if I'm relaxed, I'm just kind of enjoying it to enjoy it, that jog doesn't seem near as stressful. If a pitcher has a 90-pitch outing where they've always had runners on base or in scoring position every single inning, those 90 pitches are going to be a lot more stressful than Yu Darvish breezing along with 120 pitches just because he takes more to strike out guys. I'm a firm believer in that. Now, what I'm not a believer in is leaving Yu Darvish in a game when he's at 120 pitches and you're up by 6 runs. Granted, that means Michael Kirkman probably comes in the game, but still, unless it's a game where more than 2 batters can get on base and you're in trouble, I don't think that you should be taking Darvish out. I think if it's a close game and Darvish, obviously he's your best pitcher on the team. I don't think anyone would dispute that. And by taking him out of the game, that's basically saying, I understand that I have a better option right now, is what that's saying. And I don't agree with that line of thinking. So we're in total agreement, I think, on almost all those points.
I think the way we look at it is just exactly the opposite that Ron Washington does, and that just automatically makes us right.
If only it was that easy to run a baseball team, right?
Right.
I think we could run a decent baseball team.
I'd be the GM.
That's fine. I'll be in charge of scouting. I don't care. I'll be the manager.
And I will be having discussions.
I will manage the game. I will do in-game management. I have no problem with that. Just get me the players I want, damn it.
All right, I will be in the manager's office every single goddamn game.
You could be on the bench with me. You could help out.
I could be the GM manager.
Yes, that's fine. You can be the Jerry Jones of baseball.
Yeah.
But
okay.
We should probably talk about dessert now.
Okay.
Are you ready to talk about dessert?
Sure.
Sorry, not my cough. JURICKSON PROFAR. First off, let's start from the top. So basically, our dessert's a 3-course meal. We're going to talk about what he's done, what he's going to do. We got to stop Coney, and then we're going to think if it's unreasonable to think that Profar could put up career WAR in the same realm as Trout or Harper. But first, let's start with something to whet our palate. Pretty impressive, isn't he? I think that you came up with the line of the year. I think this might have been on the BBTIA forums that I randomly went on the other day. JURICKSON PROFAR is idiot-proof, or he's foolproof.
Yep.
You can't mess him up. Literally, you cannot mess him up. By putting him in the lineup, you instantly gain credibility. Am I right?
Yes. And, I don't know, I think it's just that, like, fans are, oh, wow, he is good. You know, it's like a surprise, and I'm kind of sitting there as the guy, like, well, yeah, dipshit. Like, this is why we should have traded Elvis Andrus for Justin Upton. But, I mean...
Have you seen Justin Upton recently, though?
Yeah, I'm higher on him than most people are, but...
He's cooled off.
Yep. But yeah.
So I'm just looking at Profar's numbers right now. Why they don't really pop off the page. Keep in mind, this is a 20-year-old. He only has 48 plate attempts, but he is striking out at a clip right around his minor league average at 14.5%. His BABIP is a sustainable 306. His average, if you like that number, which some people do, is 295. His on-base percentage is a third of the time he's on base. He's slugging a bit over 455, and his weighted runs created is a 106. I mean, if you were to tell me that's a second baseman's numbers, those are good numbers for a second baseman, in my opinion. I mean, it's especially a 20-year-old second baseman with no prior experience in the majors. I mean,
it is a small sample, though. I mean, 50 players.
Yeah, it's really, really small. So these numbers change a lot on a nightly basis.
I mean, do you think... Obviously, he's good. We know he's good. His success is really no surprise. Would you keep him in the major leagues if Elvis Andrus returned right now?
Elvis Andrus is already playing right now, big
Did
guy.
I say Elvis Andrus?
You did say Elvis Andrus.
God damn it. I meant that other guy that we're talking about.
Ian Kinsler?
Yeah. When Ian comes off the DL, would you keep JURICKSON PROFAR in the major leagues?
I would. I want him to play every day is the whole thing.
It's a problem.
Let me ask you this. Gazing into your crystal ball, let's say Kinsler is getting ready to come back here in a couple weeks, but he needs about 2 weeks of rehab assignments just to really work things out. Do you let Kinsler play a little right field?
No.
You don't let him play right field at all?
I think that's an off-season thing. I don't think that's something to do to really fuck around with in June or July. I'm not a believer in that, because then you're looking at, like, you know, he could be good, yes, but it is a gamble. And, you know, he's been an infielder his whole life, and I'm just a big believer in experience and repetition, and I just think you'd be running into problems if you try to take a career shortstop, second baseman, and just throw him in right field like, oh, yeah, this is where you're needed. Oh, you have good speed. Yes, you can handle it. It's not how it works.
No, I agree. I kind of wish sometimes that, I don't know. Are you still there?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I thought I cut out. I don't know. I kind of wish at times he would have made this move this past offseason, just because it would have made a lot of sense, and we would never have cared if Nelson Cruz got suspended. David Murphy wouldn't have had to play every day. I don't know, Eric. I know Kinsler didn't want to move, and I respect that. I mean, he had something to prove at second base this year. He's not pulling a Michael Young saying he won't do it. He just said no. And honestly, there's no hurry. I mean, Profar is only 20 years old. He's only going to get better. Do I think Profar is really bored of the minors? Yeah, I think he's really bored. I think he doesn't give a shit when he plays down there because he knows how good he is. Obviously, he comes up and he hits for all the stats are a little bit better actually in the majors than they are in the minors, which that really doesn't happen.
That's a sign right there, I think.
Yeah, I mean, Profar, just watching his at-bat in the ninth inning, it was top of the ninth inning against Andrew Bailey. I mean, he has the patience of Lance Berkman already, which is something you don't see out of... Okay, you don't see it out of the majority of the players in the major leagues, let alone a 20-year-old. He is willing to stand in there, and he's willing to take borderline calls and willing to take tough pitches to get the pitch he wants. I mean, it's ridiculous how mature his approach is at the plate. And to think he's only going to fill out more and get stronger and better and smarter, it's kind of scary how good he might be. I mean, we have the luxury of watching him mature in front of us instead of waiting for him to mature in the minors as a lot of players do. That's why his numbers will get better as he plays more, which is very scary.
I think it's clear that he's ready. You can tell by the at-bats. Tonight he had one against Andrew Bailey, and he worked it. I think it was a 7-pitch at-bat, but, I think it was 2-2 for 3 or 4 pitches, the last 3 pitches. And he ended up, muscling like a BABIP single into center field, but it was like, those are the type of at-bats you need.
Yeah. And, I mean, those are the types of singles that put a runner on base and let Ron Washington do stupid shit with Elvis Andrews, but still. That's totally... I don't even want to talk about it tonight, Eric. I just don't have it in me to talk about a bunt.
I kind of do want to talk about it.
Oh, God. Well, you can talk about it your own time, Eric. I can't talk about a bunt right now. It's too demoralizing.
All right.
Okay, go ahead and talk about the bunt real quick.
Oh, no, not going to talk about the bunt. It's all good.
Okay. Okay.
It was stupid.
Bunt is you don't talk about a bunt.
You just don't.
The second
bunt.
rule about bunting is you don't talk about bunting. But anyway, Profar's at bat was really mature for me on another level too. These are stats that probably don't really matter. But the previous night, Andrew Bailey had thrown around 20 pitches, and Profar was your first batter of that inning, batting from the 9-hole, coming up at the top of the order afterwards. I think that's a big deal. He took at least 7 pitches in an at-bat. That's really good. Typically, I think Rangers fans are used to guys like Napoli, which I love Nap, don't get me wrong. Napoli or Hamilton going down on 3 or 4 pitches at the most, just because they love to swing. This year has been a big turnaround. We were almost last. I think we're close to last in the majors in strikeouts, which is really, really cool. And Profar and Berkman, I think, are 2 of the best players with play discipline we have on our team. Something that gets overlooked with Kinsler, too, is Kinsler doesn't strike out a whole lot. He pops out a lot, but that's fine. You put the ball in play, things are going to happen. That's my philosophy on it.
Yeah, it's kind of the Marco Scudero effect. I mean, just make a ton of contact, try not to strike out too much. I mean, if you have a lineup, and by the time the postseason begins, I believe JURICKSON PROFAR will be in the lineup in some capacity, in the starting lineup, in the ALDS. And if you think of a lineup that has Ian Kinsler, this is again perfect world, hoping everyone comes back healthy and no one gets injured, but Ian Kinsler, Elvis Andrews, JURICKSON PROFAR, and Lance Berkman, like that's some, that's 4 pretty good at bats you're gonna see right there.
I mean, Elvis Andrews has pretty good at bats too. Beltre is swing happy, but I'm gonna let Beltre swing because he makes great contact.
Yeah, he crushes the ball.
AJ Brzezinski's hit or miss. That's fine. He's a catcher. I really don't care about production from him.
He makes contact, too, though. He doesn't strike out a ton. He's hardly ever going to walk, but he doesn't strike out. He's a contact guy.
Yeah, and I think what he provides behind the plate, I think, is a big deal. In a perfect world, what's your first 4 batters look like? You still like the Ian Kinsler leading off?
Yeah, I would lead off Ian Kinsler. Damn. Okay. If I have, is JURICKSON PROFAR in this hypothetical?
You tell me, Eric.
Well, yeah. I mean, just to make it fun, I guess. Yeah.
Well, give me a 1 through 9.
Whew, 1 through 9.
I don't care. I don't care where they play. Just give me a 1 through 9.
Okay. Ian Kinsler leading off.
And you can't have Giancarlo Stanton in the lineup with Profar. I'm just gonna throw that out there right now.
Okay. Here's the lineup. Say about it what you will. I'll be curious to hear what you have to say. But I would lead off Ian Kinsler at first base. Batting second, I would have JURICKSON PROFAR at second base. Third, damn. Lance Berkman, I guess, DH. Fourth would be Beltre at third. Fifth would be, I guess, Nelson Cruz in right. Sixth would be... Fuck, man, this lineup sucks.
I know, man. You're really blowing this right now. I'm not gonna lie, this is a really shitty lineup, Eric.
Well, yeah, but I don't like Elvis Andrews at the top of the lineup because I don't think he's one of the 4 best hitters on the team. I guess I would probably bat. Shit, man, you killed me on this. I'd probably go like Pierzynski 6, Andrews 7, Murphy 8, and Martin 9.
Okay, I can live with that.
I'm just strictly going by the book here.
I think I might flip-flop Elvis and Ian. I don't mind Elvis leading off, actually. So you okay? You don't like that?
Clearly, I've been smoking too much.
But I would go Elvis Andrews, Ian Kinsler, Lance Berkman, Lake Dad. I think I would go Adrian Beltre, and then I would go... See, this is where it gets hairy for me. I would probably stick with Nelson Cruz. Then I would go with JURICKSON PROFAR. Then I would probably go with Mitch Moreland. No, I would flip. Okay, after Nelson Cruz, I would go Mitch Moreland. Then I would go JURICKSON PROFAR. Then I would go AJ Przenski. And then I would go whoever's in your center field platoon.
I think you have 10 batters in your lineup.
I don't think I do.
Where's Mitch Moreland playing?
First.
Where's Ian Kinsler at?
Left.
Oh.
See what I did there?
I see what you did there.
That was sneaky. I left out David Murphy.
Very sneaky. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, if David Murphy's not in the lineup, I like your lineup. Good job. You win.
Thank you. Thank you. I win all the internet.
Yes.
Okay. So
yeah.
if you've noticed on our notes too, I did something really sneaky there. Because under JURICKSON PROFAR, he has to stay in the majors. And then my next bullet is, would you move Ian Kinsler to left field? I kind of answered that.
Very good.
And we just stopped Coney. So, do you regret the Elvis Andrews deal at all?
I think about it very little. But, at the time, I thought it would have been the smart move to trade Elvis Andrews for Justin Upton. And then Elvis Andrews got a great contract, and I couldn't really argue with it. But it didn't, at the same time, it was like it wasn't I don't think, financially efficient way to go about business. So I guess I have mixed feelings about it, but I would just stick to my original guns and say, yeah, I wish JURICKSON PROFAR had been up all year, because this is what he has shown to be is exactly what people said he was going to be. It's not a surprise that he's like this, and what you have with Elvis Andrews, obviously a great glove and a lot of contact, not very much power. JURICKSON PROFAR, I think, would produce 4 or 5 wins in his rookie year if he had been our shortstop. That's how good his bat is.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, I don't blame you for feeling that way. I don't regret the deal simply because part of what makes a really good baseball team is not having to sign guys out of free agency, and we're not letting our good players get there. I think also what's really good about this is we're playing the whole it's ours and you can't have it game. No one else can get Elvis Andrews for a few years now. Regardless of who we have playing shortstop, JURICKSON PROFAR, Elvis Andrews, no one can have either of those two guys if we don't want them to, which is really big to me, because those are two guys who can really make or break a team. So that's kind of big for me. Now, I'm not just saying we should pay all that money to play keep away. We got really good players, and we drafted another shortstop tonight with a pick I really liked.
Travis Dimitri?
Yes.
He's probably my favorite player in the draft. I was very happy the Rangers took him.
We are just a middle infield factory, and I love the Rangers drafting. They take the best player and the player that they want when they get their pick. It doesn't matter if it's a pitcher. It doesn't matter if they have 12 middle infielders ahead of them who are, with 6 of them having pretty good prospects at making the major leagues. They're going to draft the best player, and that is a smart move. St. Louis had a very smart draft tonight, too. It's like the rich just tend to get richer, and it's always a good day to be a Rangers fan when John Daniels is your GM, and the people he places around him make him even better.
Well, again, just as kind of our disclaimer, we have no fucking idea how good these guys are going to be.
No.
Saying it was like a good draft or whatever, I don't really want to go that far.
Well, I mean, I'm just going by what... I'm going to be honest with you. Professor Parks, Jason Parks, and Jason Cole they're pretty honest with saying, this was kind of questionable. Like, the Kansas City Royals had made a pretty questionable pick. But they have said that the Rangers' picks, they're good picks. Basically, they're not underselling their picks. Is what they're doing. They're picking the talent that's available when they're picking. And for my mind, without knowing a lot about these players and without being a scout who is worth a damn, if you can pick the talent that's widely regarded as good at your pick, you've done a good job. Now, you can always talk about the stories where people take a guy out of nowhere and they turn out to be whoever. That's great. But if you can draft talent where there's talent, you got to do it. That's just smart baseball.
Yeah, being Rangers fans, I became very invested in the minor league system at a young age because the major league teams sucked every single year. So it's fun because even back then, we only had a few guys in our farm system that we could really get excited about. Like, it was like the DVD boys, and there's always like a Justin Smoke or Chris Davis or Taylor Teagarden, like, woohoo, Now there's like 20 of those guys, and 10 of them have a legitimate shot of making it and still have a ton of washouts. I get really excited. Sorry.
No, I don't know. Just baseball's fun. Baseball can be fun sometimes.
All the time.
Sometimes it's not fun, but baseball can be a lot of fun sometimes.
Imagine how fun it would be if Ron Washington wasn't the manager.
And, I've said this many times. I don't have a problem with Ron. I have a problem with the people in the dugout who give him advice. Because obviously Ron relies on the advice of others. He lets players talk their way into lineups. He lets, he doesn't have a great feel if Ogando's hurt or whatever. And, that's fine. It doesn't matter if you have a manager who's a player's manager, who listens to other people, who lets, kind of like a committee decision. But put people on that committee who make a smart decision. I think Maddox has helped develop pitching, but I also think that our farm system is a lot more important in developing pitching. If it takes a new pitching coach, which I'm not advocating to get rid of Maddox, maybe Jackie Moore needs to go. Maybe you need to have someone down there saying, look, Ron, we have 3 left-handed bats in a row in our lineup. Maybe we shouldn't. Or, we have Neil Kotz warmed and ready to face his left-hander. There's no reason to leave Nick Tepich out there a batter too long. Things like that.
I think
are just saying, look, splits. This guy cannot hit lefties for whatever reason. Do this, or hey, we got Jeff Baker off the bench who is great in this position. Things like that.
I think it goes back partly, at least, to keeping continuity within the organization, and so even though Jackie Moore and Ron Washington aren't necessarily the best at what they do, then they're still, familiar, and that's important. Because I tend to think that, like, Dave Magadan and Mike Maddox get a lot of love. Like, the general perception is like, yo, we have a really good pitching coach and we have a really good hitting coach. You don't hear that about our manager. So I tend to think that those guys are probably more important than, Ron actually is.
No, I agree. I just think the management decisions could be better.
Yeah.
And that
I agree. I do agree.
Fall on Ron.
Just bullpen management, like, I'm not so big on lineup construction. I tend to just think if you have a bunch of dope hitters in your lineup that you're going to hit the shit out of the ball. So stacking 3 lefties or, bunching too many hitters together. In the playoffs, that can be a rough time because the game is just slowed down by specialists. But during the regular season, not that big of a deal. But bullpen management, sincerely, I believe, has cost us a couple games at least this year. And, it's not going to change anytime soon. I mean, Ron Washington is still, like most managers in baseball, still stuck in, 1970 with bullpens. And it's like, that's not how you do it.
Yeah, that's a very frustrating part of the game. I think it's going to get better simply because he won't have bad options going forward. Just since we've been talking, I've multitasking on Twitter. Michael Kirkman says he knows he's not doing well and he's on his last leg or something, which sounds to me like I think Newberg said this. It's a pitcher who's lost confidence, so he's probably gone. I would not be surprised if he's DFA'd tonight. So that's not surprising. I think we will get Soria back. I think Soria will help. I don't think he's going to take an 8th inning role this year, though. I think he's going to be our 7th inning guy, which is a big deal to me. If he replaces, God, I don't know who he'd replace out there in that bullpen. Because it's going to sound really weird, but Jason Frazier actually got the job done tonight. He was supposed to.
Yeah.
But not for a bad throw by Lake Dad. He gets out of that inning and doesn't allow the run. So it's not really his fault. And if you look at his most recent outings, he's not doing that bad. And so I'm not completely down on Jason Frazier simply because we're paying him some money. But I think if you replace Kirkman with Soria, then that's pretty good. But then again, I don't know who your long man would be then. But then, I don't know. Again, this is why I'm not managing baseball right now, probably.
Well, the way I look at everything is how it will affect the postseason. And I would be a lot more worried, and I'd be bitching a lot more if it was guys like Joe Nathan and Tanner Shepard and Robbie Ross giving up runs, because Michael Kirkman and Jason Frazier are almost expected to do something bad if they're put in a critical situation. So the way I see it is that Michael Kirkman and Jason Frazier, neither of them will be on the postseason roster in all likelihood, or they will not be contributing high leverage innings. So I couldn't care less. And, guys like Neftali Feliz, Joaquin Soria, I'll be interested to see what they do, because they are guys that can contribute to our, how high our beta gets, I guess, with talent on the team.
Mm-hmm. I mean, right now, I think both are throwing off. I think Soria's throwing off a full... Soria threw a bullpen today. Feliz is throwing off a half mound, so they're progressing nicely, needless to say. Colby Lewis is shut down. Mitch Moreland is shut down, which we might talk about at a later date. But anyway, we got one more point here. It's just kind of wrapping up our dessert menu. Who do you think has the highest career WAR? Eric, you're going to have to gaze deep into your crystal ball right now. Who's going to have the highest career WAR? Harper, Trout, Machado, or Profar?
Okay.
Sorry.
I would bless you, but I don't do that, so...
That's fine. I don't either.
Is your nose running now?
Yeah, I'm feeling pretty shitty
That sucks.
right now.
I'm sorry, man. Not trying to make jokes in vain.
No, it's okay.
Let's see. Best career WAR. I like Bryce Harper. I mean, I think he has like 50 home run potential. Okay, because Keith Law, just as a small tidbit, Keith Law refers to them as the Big Four: Mike Trout, Bryce Harper, Manny Machado, and JURICKSON PROFAR. Of those four players, I would say if I had to rank them 1 through 4 in career WAR, I would go Harper, Trout, Profar, Machado.
Justify.
Okay.
You don't have to justify Harper. I'm right there with you.
Yeah. Mike Trout, I think, is going to steal a ton of bases until he gets, into his 30s. And he's going to, I think, he could hit 25 or 30 home runs a year. A guy that can go 30-30 on the bases is, that's just a ton of wins racked up, especially with great defense. JURICKSON Profar, the only reason I think he'll have more career WAR than Manny Machado is because I think that shortstop or second base, whatever, middle infield in general, it takes a lot less offense to go a long way. Like, Ian Kinsler is a way above average shortstop. Second baseman, excuse me. But if he was put in the corner outfield or corner infield, his bat wouldn't play up as much. He gets a lot of his value because he's so much better as a hitter than most second basemen in baseball. You're really only looking at, like, Chase Utley, Dustin Pedroia, Robinson Cano, guys like that. Manny Machado, on the other hand, is competing with guys like Adrian Beltre, Evan Longoria, people like that, and
Miguel Cabrera.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know why I forgot him. I guess I just think of him as a DH.
I
in
never
my
think
head.
of Miguel Cabrera as
somebody who actually owns a glove.
Yeah, I know.
But yeah, that's how I'd look at it, and that's we're talking about four guys who, if they hit their potential. They're Hall of Fame type players because they're all number one prospect type material. Mm-hmm. How do you look at that?
I agree with you, but I'd flip Trout and Profar. I think Profar is going to surprise a lot of people with the amount of home runs he actually can hit in a year. Just for the sole reason, I don't think... I think the number that's been floated around a lot is 10 to 15 home runs. I think he's closer to a 15 to 20 home run in his prime. I really think he could do that. I think what adds... This is big for me right now. Underline this, make it in red. He's a switch hitter, which I think is really going to help him throughout his career. Trout's not. Now, this doesn't count for WAR purposes, but he's always going to have a matchup that's favorable to him, and that's a big deal. I just really believe that's... I don't know if that's going to make a difference, really. I don't know.
Well,
but
he'll always...
The ability...
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, he'll always have the platoon leverage.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that is valuable, definitely.
Yeah. I think he's going to steal not a whole lot of bases. He's really not that fast. He's not going to clog up the bases, though. He's going to become smarter on the bases, so he'll play up in game. His plate discipline's always going to be very good. As long as he has someone decent hitting behind him, he'll never be able to pitch around him. So, I don't know. I just think he's in position to put up some ridiculous numbers. Now, that's not saying Machado's WAR is going to be bad. I want to make sure everyone understands that I'm just saying these... It's like comparing, I don't know, Clayton Kershaw to Yu Darvish or something. Or Clayton Kershaw to Justin Verlander. These are two great pitchers. Just because one's better than the other doesn't make the one who's not as good bad. But I think all these players are studs, and it's pretty exciting to live in an era of baseball with good players like that. But I feel like crap, Eric. So I know you have more to say, and I want you to say it. But I'm going to head out.
Yeah. Sounds good.
Is that okay?
Sounds good,
man. You want me to take us out?
Take us out, man.
I want to make sure we thank everybody for tuning in this week to Warning Track Power. Like I said, Eric will be back in a moment with some parting thoughts. But until 2 weeks from now, count them 2 weeks, I am out. I will see you later. Bye-bye.
I'll see you. I know exactly where you're at. That's all. You don't have to wonder and try to find out who I am. You will see who I am. I will tell you who I am. Who are you?
For context reasons, I guess I will say that there's been a couple days worth of gap. Ian and I actually recorded this podcast on Thursday, and right now it's Sunday. It will probably be out tomorrow, but so we're mainly talking about the Red Sox series because that was what was most recent at the time. Today, the Rangers defeated Toronto 6-4, and we'll be heading home for an 11-game series. But what I want to talk about is actually something my friend Jeremy wanted me to talk about on the last podcast, which was Evan Gattis. Since I'm not going to dedicate 3, 4, 5 minutes or just talking about Evan Gattis the whole time, I will take it to the larger scope of what's great about baseball and what kind of sucks about baseball. It's hype and overreaction, and the difference between a platoon player and an everyday player. In 2013, we're kind of stuck in this wave of every time something great happens, we want to read into it and just rush to, he's figured something out. When in reality, baseball is about what it means in the big picture. Classic kind of example, I guess, is I always have kind of argued with my dad about Phil Hughes because my dad's a Yankees fan. But my dad, every time Phil Hughes, who was a top prospect at one time, every time Phil Hughes has a good start, my dad is, telling me, looks like he's turned the corner or something. And I've just been the guy ever since sabermetrics, I guess, were a part of my life. I'm the guy that says, we'll see. Being a Rangers fan, we've kind of had the same phenomena with Derek Holland. He can spin a few good starts in a row, and then he just hits the tank. The way this relates to Evan Gattis is the same as it relates to Chris Davis and the new hotshot prospect on the Dodgers, Yasiel Puig. ESPN and MLB Network and all these, writers are embellishing what 4 games actually means. It's always cool, don't get me wrong, I love to see, awesome plays, and the first night Puig played, he had that great throw from right field, but if you look at the play, it was actually, he took a terrible route to the ball, caught it, and made a nice throw. The first part of that has been left out of the pundits' mouths, I guess. So we have to kind of keep perspective, while at the same time, of course, you appreciate seeing something awesome, that never gets old. That's why you watch baseball. But you have to kind of dissect it by taking a step back, and you don't want to put too much into something that really doesn't mean a whole lot. Admittedly, I've been known to be a troll to my friend Jeremy when it comes to the Braves, because I just like to talk shit, I guess. But he wanted me to talk about Evan Gattis, and again, disclaimer, I like Evan Gattis a lot. I like a cool story when I hear one. But in reality, the story is kind of filling that dead space where a player's true talent is. And Evan Gattis is not... He's a greater story than he is a player. I joke on Twitter with Jeremy that he's a platoon player because against lefties, he's 317, 396, 683, 184 weighted runs created, and his strikeout and walk rates are 12.5% and 12.5%, respectively. Against righties, he's 243, 303, 559, which is actually a great slugging percentage. I'm sure that isolated power looks fucking amazing. But his walk rate is 5.7% and his strikeout rate is 27%. When you break hitters down, or pitchers for that matter, when you break them down anatomically, what they are essentially left with is how often do you get on base and how often do you make contact. In baseball terminology, these are quantified in the walk rate and the strikeout rate. How often you get on base, how often you strike out. Pretty basic. During this sabermetric revolution, people have figured out that the most valuable pitchers are the ones who eliminate contact altogether. They have the highest strikeout rates, and then you try to limit base runners by not allowing them to get on with a walk. You're basically putting teams at the mercy of hitting home runs off of you and how effective your BABIP is. Offensively, it's just kind of a reflection. You want to have the guys on your team that get on base the most often with the highest walk rates, the anti-Chris Davis, let's say, and you don't want them to eliminate your team's outs by striking out a lot. Again, something Chris Davis has not been until these last 2 months. I think part of it is that I get very annoyed when the media makes a big deal out of small samples and how we're kind of, playing hindsight GM saying, oh, well, this was a terrible trade in 2011 to move Chris Davis because he's doing well in 2013. I mean, how well he's been how excellent of a hitter he's been the last 2 months did absolutely nothing, to help the Rangers in 2011. You can't have it both ways, because oftentimes it's the same people who are building statues of players after 2 months of production who are the first ones to point a finger at them when they go through a slump for a month. It's just overreaction city, basically. When players can prove it over larger samples, it becomes something you can bank on. Those are the guys that you pay money to. That's why Ian Kinsler has a contract. That's why Elvis Andrus has a contract. Yu Darvish strikes hitters out, and his control was lauded when he was in Japan. So yeah, that's a guy you want to have with the money. Those are the guys you want to invest in. You can't put a lot of stock into players like Chris Davis, who can put together great stretches where they look like the best player in the league, but can they sustain it for the long haul? Those are the players that we should really be talking about, not the flavor of the month, which is what people want, and, obviously they capture the imagination. But can they do it for year 2 and year 3 and year 4, year 5? Are they somebody you give an 8-year contract to? Do you invest money in a player if he does not have a track record. Chris Davis is one of my favorite Rangers prospects of all time. But it doesn't make me regret what happened in 2011 because of a couple of good months. And baseball is a game that's based off of a ton of small samples that create the big sample. But I'm really more focused on the big sample. Anyway, that concludes. I hope that answered, I guess, what Jeremy was saying. Yeah, look at walk rates and strikeout rates. Those will paint you a very accurate image, simplistically, for almost every player in baseball. This has been episode 7 of Warning Track Power. Thank you for listening. I'm Eric Reining. My co-host Ian Fullington and I should be back. We always say 2 weeks, but it'll probably be like closer to 3. And we should be coming out on iTunes at some point this summer. Ian will probably have an update for you on that better than I do, obviously.
I blow the dust off the cover when I make my pick. Blind melody, ghost in the hallway that jumps to the kick. My vision taking on a whole new level that'll blindside the devil when these cold words hit. Soak it in and dance to the crackle. Run around and flinch from the sound of the gavel when the judgment lands. Break the silence with my own young hands till I can replace emotion where the boneyard stands. Time ticker, lost in the grid. Trying to find a better way to solve it than jumping off of a bridge. Feeling tied down and tortured in all the ways that there is. It's not gonna help me when the white light splits. Therapeutic, fiend for the music. Floating on the last boat sent from the cruise ship that saves his soul. It's time to take this show on the road as the one-man vessel people claim that they know. I'll go, this is not home. Chewing on a love song, spitting out a poem. Not sitting on a throne in the place I chose. My blood will run warm when the cold